Okay, Google. Okay, it's not going to work right now. But anyway, we're going to talk about Android One and what it's going to do to India. I've got two people right here with me who are going to take us through what Android One means and whether it's going to set the markets on fire. Abhimanyu Radhakrishnan, host of Super Techies, and we've also got Rohan of PriceBaba. So let's begin. And before I come back to this interesting device that I have in my hand, Rohan, what do you think about the Android One?
Android One is a very good step. Low-end phones were never, they were never treated very well. They never received the kind of attention from Google before. Okay. Because mostly they were saddled with bloatware that manufacturers would, put thereby making the phone slower, and the experience was never great.
Yeah.
Android One aims to fix that.
Okay.
So it aims to bring the Nexus-like experience where you can buy a 6,000 rupee phone and it would still be pretty usable.
Okay. Abhi, what's your sense of why should one buy it or not buy it? Let's answer that question first.
So talk is
you have
cheap.
bought it. Huh?
Talk is cheap. Skin in the game. Not a demo device sent by the manufacturer for the press. I actually just ordered it the moment it was announced.
And it was available easily?
Yep. Went to Flipkart.com, picked up. So Flipkart's selling the Spice version. All the different retailers are selling different versions, but essentially the hardware is identical. Landed up in 2 days.
Okay.
No nonsense of pre-sale frenzy like the Xiaomi phones. And I was like at 6,299. I may not be the target market, but at that price point to get a phone which is effectively as good as, say, the iPhone 5,
as good as the iPhone 5?
As good as not the 5S, definitely in terms of spec for spec. So my life hasn't changed that much in 2 years.
Almost 1/8 the price.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you agree with that, Ron?
Not entirely, but I wouldn't entirely agree with that notion. I mean,
but in a manner of speaking,
having said that, yes, I do agree with the fact that this is a 6,000 rupee phone that's actually usable.
Okay.
That you will not pull your hair out when you're using this phone. So with that respect, it's a job well done.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So what are the key things that make you feel that it's comparable to an iPhone 5, Abhi?
Well, I won't want to compare hardware to hardware because earlier Android phones have had better hardware like for like than the iPhone. But the iPhone was just really snappy and worked super seamlessly because they got the combination. But I think Google's essentially enforced that combination that you must have, a minimum amount of RAM, a minimum amount of internal memory, a quad-core processor powering all this, and a decent size of battery life, screen size. The combination just seems to be working in terms of Google saying this is the minimum spec. Otherwise, what was happening is that too many Android phones either had poor screens, bad density, really poor internal memory, and in fact, that one thing of internal memory was just completely destroying the Android experience for a lot of people who are still used to not uploading stuff to the cloud immediately, but keeping it on their device.
Right.
And the most important part is that the updates will come guaranteed by the air without you having to upgrade your phone. So Android also has a lot of security issues because they're not protective as Apple in terms of allowing apps into the store. Anything can go into an Android store, and therefore a lot of malware was coming in as well.
Right.
So just that edge of saying that I will always have the latest Android version, and it will be on a phone where the basic specs are enough to have a decent experience. It won't be my primary phone certainly, but at that price point as a secondary phone.
But what's your primary phone then?
My primary phone unfortunately is a tablet, so a lot of people think that's dorky because it's like even more, even larger than this, but it actually in terms of power and processing speed, it's way higher than this. So I want one really high-end phone on which I can really freak out, but I also want just a basic phone on which I won't really be doing high-end app usage.
But where do you take your calls? I mean, let me put the question like that.
Now I would start taking it on this.
Okay.
Earlier I was even taking it on that. But two devices at a certain price point didn't make sense.
Okay.
Just that, for me, it's just the price point game, 6,000 rupees.
So I think Akshay Aggarwal is also here with us from Gadget Diary. Akshay, I don't know if you're hearing me clearly and loudly. We're talking about the Android One. I don't know if you heard what Abhimanyu and Rohan had to say. What's your sense?
See, I've been using the device from past couple of days. It's a really good device. What I really like about the device is the company has really optimized the software for an entry-level phone, and it's a very good device for people looking for an entry-level smartphone below 7,000.
Okay.
There are other options as well in the market, as other person has already said, but it's hard to get those devices like Redmi 1S.
What are people telling you? I mean, you've reviewed this. I'm guessing already. What's the kind of comments and feedback that you've been getting, Akshay?
Most of the users are liking this device. Since most of the Android devices have same specification, all the three companies have released the device on the same specification. Users are mostly worried about the design and how smooth is the device actually works. And one more thing, they are really eager to know whether we can play most of the games on this device or not.
Okay, and the fundamental question, is it a buy? I mean, at this price and for these features?
Yes, definitely is.
Okay, and is that go across brands, or are you any specific handset manufacturer that you prefer?
No, I've used all three devices. They are similar in terms of performance. If we talk about the design, I like the carbon better than the others.
Okay, what about you guys, Rohan? What's your sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that the only if you keep the three Android One devices on a table, it is very, very hard to distinguish one from the other from the front face, because they are very, very similar. It's only the back, as you can see, that's so it differs them.
Yeah.
So if you want a plain Jane black and white option, then Canvas, the Micromax Canvas Spice can give that to you. But if you want a little bit of color, then Carbon has those options as well.
And camera, of course, as we saw in that image just now, the cameras look different, right? So the Micromax camera is different from the Spice.
Both these phones, have this new because for the lens is protruding out a little bit. It even is in the new Apple one. So I think Micromax has tried to even out that protrusion by putting this disc over there. So this much amount of, I guess, flexibility they have essentially on the back panel.
But the cameras themselves are quite powerful, aren't they? I mean, we are talking about a 5 megapixel, is that right?
Yep, a 5 megapixel autofocus sensor at the back with an LED flash and a 2 megapixel front facing camera.
Yeah. So that's now, I mean, to go back to Abhi's first point about, almost being at iPhone 5 level, isn't it?
The iPhone 5 technically had a 8MP camera, and there's a considerable between the, if you were to compare it, side by side. But having said that, it's come to a point where if you take a photograph, it's not going to be absolutely grainy. Like, so the shots that we took, if you have good lighting, it actually takes a shot that's quite usable. You can upload it on your social networks and share it with friends, and that's basically what a lot of people are looking for. They're not looking for professional DSLR grade shots. They're just looking for regular shots that you can take and quickly upload.
Selfies. Okay. So questions coming in. Let me pose the first one to you, Akshay. And Rashi asks, Android One versus Mi Red, which one in the same price range, which is better? Akshay?
It's better specification, so it's a bit better. So I'll prefer you to go with Redmi 1S if you can get one. Else you can definitely opt for the Android one. You won't be disappointed with it.
Okay. Abhi, you wanna?
Yeah, I think spec for spec, the Redmi is definitely better, but the OS is still one generation before. I don't think the Redmi has 4.4.4 yet.
Okay.
And there's no guarantee that it'll keep getting the latest ones. That said, Xiaomi customizes their Android so massively that it's effectively almost a different
And I just
OS.
want to remind whoever is sort of, who tuned in or clicked in at this point, is really that we are all agreed that Android One is the thing to go for. We're only now discussing on which and where and what.
Not necessarily, because if you look at the larger horizon, not this year or not 2 years from now, it looks as if smartphones have reached that sort of level of adequacy where beyond a point, increase in features won't really matter. Like, when's the last time anybody got excited about a laptop launch? After a point, you realize that, the specs have hit some level of ceiling, after which diminishing returns. So now, given that the only business to be in is either be a manufacturer or an OEM or own the platform like Google, platform game is tricky, where Windows was 10 years ago and where they are now. Google could just lose the plot if an Amazon beats them to it, or even tomorrow an Apple figures out a better way to upgrade the entire platform. If smartwatch and that health kit work well, who knows?
Okay, so and I'm going to come back to Apple and the iPhone 6. About it last week, but I'm going to come back. The other question Nikhila asks is, Rohan, do you want to take this?
Yeah.
Do these phones hang from time to time like other models in this price range?
No. So in
our
usage,
how do we know?
So we know, I mean, for the last few days that I've been using the phone, it's fine. I don't think we've experienced hanging or any glitches or stutter.
5 hangs. Okay. Akshay, do these phones hang?
Not as of now. I've been using the phones from last 4 days, and till now I've yet to experience any lag or slowness in these devices.
Okay, but Akshay, anything else that you want to point out by way of negatives?
There isn't really any negative feature about this phone because we have to take into the consideration the price point at which the company is offering this device. So only negative thing about this device is its display. It's FWVGA display, which is a bit low resolution. So you might find grainy display in some of the games as well as while reading text.
Okay. Yes. Sorry, Rohan.
So speaking of spec, if you were to compare the Xiaomi Redmi 1S, which is the hot seller, versus these guys, so clearly the Redmi 1S is better spec for spec. But we also have to remember the fact that the Redmi sells only on their weekly sales, and you have to be really lucky to get one. The good thing about the Android One series, I feel, is that because it is designed for a particular price point. Now at that price point, a lot of people are going to prefer to buy this phone offline. And that's where I think they've hit it on the nail, where they're going to bring this to retail stores by during Diwali time.
Okay.
So that's a good point to consider. A lot of people are not buy phones online still, so these phones are going to they're going to be able to get their hands.
Okay. So another question coming in: will Android One pose a threat to Samsung phones?
Yes, absolutely yes.
Okay.
So if you look at a competitive Samsung phone, which is like a Core 2, there is a massive difference in the experience. So obviously higher-end Samsung phones may give you a good experience, but it's more often than not been the case that phones under 10,000 rupees have been crappy. So yes, it definitely poses a huge threat.
Yeah.
Both Samsung and LG aren't part of Android One as of now.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
No, so but I'm saying, if you flip the question around, if I go to a shop or a store and I look at a Samsung, I look at an Android One or any of these brands, which will I buy and why?
Maybe Samsung and LG feel that within Android, they are the upper end of the segment and they want to keep that positioning. So they purposely don't want to be a part of Android One. You could argue, because the question now is that if everybody has the same hardware spec, what actually differentiates? I don't think that disc on the camera is going to be enough for a consumer to make a real choice. Customer support to some extent, brand to another extent. So therefore, you might just see Samsung say that, okay, our positioning is going to be that we are the luxury Android guys.
Yeah.
And at the lower end, I just don't see how anybody is going to compete with this spec.
Okay, Akshay, how do you think? I mean, if I were to go to a store, I look at a high-end Samsung, LG, and of course these phones. What should I be choosing?
Some point or the other, users do think about the brand value. So if they're active online or if they're searching for a device review or specs online and they're comparing devices online, they might know that this is a better device. But if we go to the store, they might opt for Samsung. But personally, I feel that the Samsung is not really focusing on the entry-level Android devices as of now, because most of the entry-level devices are a bit laggy and they often get very slow after installing few applications.
Okay, and that's a big concern. I mean, I have that concern with my Nexus for sure. So what lies ahead, guys? I mean, so Android's come, clearly it's created the stir it wanted to. What's next?
They need to up the game. When you look at the hardware, it is not the most impressive piece of hardware we've seen in terms of spec. Like it's there in some respects. So for example, putting in that quad, or getting the experience tight from that end is great. But like it was mentioned earlier, the display, it being a 854 by 480 pixel display, that's still low resolution.
Okay.
So Android One will need to, in their version 2, will need to up the game, will need to up the spec game. They promised an under $100 price tag, which they were not able to match. So it's a little over $100 right now. So the deal needs to get a little sweeter for this to sustain.
Okay, Abhi?
I think they need to figure out the smartphone is kind of useless without a data plan. The hordes of people who are buying the smartphones get cheap data. They need a few more deals like the one they announced at the launch with 8 months of free data and
200 MB. Yep.
I mean, 200 MB is okay, but that's not going to get in a data revolution. Remember, when the iPhone launched in the US, everywhere it was with contract with data built into it. So maybe I think they need to work a little harder on the carrier relationships, because otherwise there are not that many data consumers in India as the ARPU numbers show you.
Okay, great. So let's now come to the big sort of gorilla in the room, which is iPhone 6. Now, obviously, one is not comparing iPhone 6 with this, and perhaps one should not. But just to sort of put things in context, since that was the big launch just last week, and this, how do the two compare, and should one compare at all, Rohan?
Well, it clearly shows which companies have put, where the companies have. clear. Android One clearly shows that Google has set their eyes on India.
Emerging markets, entry point, mass. Yeah.
Whereas Apple still remains to be that phone which is made for certain starting with the Western countries. So the preference still lies there because that's their core market.
Okay.
So it's still not optimized for India. Siri still can't understand your Indian accent as well as a 6,000 rupee phone
this
can.
works amazingly. Though for some reason it didn't work when I started, but I'm sure it will. And,
I'm pretty sure we can try that out in a bit.
What is it? Google now?
You just have to say OK Google.
OK Google.
There we go.
What's the weather like?
It's 28 degrees with haze, Mumbai.
Right?
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
And this is brilliant.
My mistake in the beginning.
Right. So it clearly shows that we know where their focus is, and the focus is in the right place.
Okay, Abhi.
No, I think it's going to make it more clear than ever that these two companies are not in the same business. Apple is a hardware and software company, so it makes money selling phones at very high margins compared to what it costs to build them, and makes money by insisting you put your credit card into your phone the moment you activate it, where you actually buy apps. Google is an advertising company, right? They're going to make their money not so much. I don't think Google makes any margin on this phone, probably even makes a little bit of a loss if they have to give the OEMs some incentive to keep manufacturing these. Most of Android apps aren't paid for, even the in-app purchases. I think a lot of it's going straight. Google just wants that mass of user base, the data, and shove ads their way. Two different business models if you look at it.
Completely different, yeah. Akshay, what do you think? I mean, iPhone 6, not necessarily versus Android One, but generally since iPhone 6 also arrived almost at the same time, how would you look at these two phones and universes?
Okay, iPhone is targeted at a particular audience. Most of the people buying an iPhone even do not look for other options or entry-level devices.
Okay.
So Apple have a different segment where they are targeting these devices. Whereas if you look at the Android device, they have really worked hard on this device. Especially the example you just saw about the OK Google. You should definitely try out the Hindi as well. It detects Hindi very easily.
Okay.
And you won't face any difficulty in telling anything to the device in Hindi.
Okay.
So they have worked really good on this on the software part. So that's a plus point of this device. So these two have entirely different markets. So yes, both of them are going to work out very well.
Okay.
Especially iPhone has already seen 4 million pre-orders.
Right.
On the first day of its launch.
Right. And here's a question that's also come in while just as you were saying that, Bhakti. I heard that Android One supports 7 languages. Is it true?
Yes, Tamil, Gujarati, Marathi, Hindi, 2 more, and English.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's quite something, Abhi. I mean, in terms of customized kind of product.
So the bigger question is Android One the gateway drug to the Google ecosystem, right?
Okay.
So once you have enough people on Android One, people start using Gmail because automatically you get a Gmail ID. For God forbid they'll even start using Google Plus, which currently lots of people have but don't actually use. So you never know. Once everybody's got your username and password in their device, then they start trying even this Google Keep, which is an Evernote competitor. Tomorrow Google Talk might become as good as WhatsApp, for which you don't have to put an extra app. So gateway drug theory, again in theory sounds good. Remains to be seen how many using other Google cloud-based services, even Google Docs or Drive in the future.
Right. Okay, so we're running to the end of the show. I'm going to ask all three of you all for your favorite instrument and the favorite apps in the Android One context. So keep thinking about it. Akshay, let me begin with you. Favorite instrument within the Android One we've seen, and the 3 or 4 apps that go with this instrument that you like the most.
Okay, so my favorite device would be Android One, especially the red variant. I really like that variant. And applications which really work on this device is first of all Google Translator. I really enjoy translating Hindi to English on the device. Camera app, Quick Office, and a preloaded Sound app.
Sorry, what's the last one?
Sound.
Okay.
S-A-W-N Sound.
Yeah, got it. The music thing. Okay, Abhi?
Yeah, the music app.
I haven't tried out the canvas. The canvas actually Rohan just showed me, so I've tried out for literally 5 minutes. Haven't tried the carbon yet. I'm liking the spice so far. But the apps which I don't have on tablet, for example, the first app I quickly installed was Audible for Android, which is audiobooks.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to use the phone, it drains battery.
Okay.
But on this phone, which I'm not going to be using data very aggressively, I want a lot of stuff pre-stored on this.
Okay.
So I download audiobooks onto this and hear it while keeping the other phone free for calls. Definitely. And of course, the other very interesting app, which I think people should consider, it's quite a small and unknown app. It's called advanced silent mode. I'm just going to try and see if I can find it. It's not currently open, but basically I keep my phone on silent perpetually. 3-4 numbers which are super emergency numbers. Maybe I'll add yours to the list now that I'm on the show often.
Yes.
Only those will override the silent mode and ring the phone.
Okay.
So my second phone also becomes a sort of a
actually
backup.
such an important and useful one, but most people haven't got it.
To be honest, it's built into the iPhone, but in Android you need a separate app for it. But I find it really useful, especially in this day and age of DND not working.
Okay, Rohan, last word.
Not having tested the Carbon, so I won't be able to comment. But of the two that I've seen, I like the Micromax canvas. I think it has a nicer feel to it at the back. With respect to apps, I have some very cool utilitarian apps, something called Speakerphone EX. So what it does is the moment you take the phone off your ear, it automatically starts the speakerphone. And the moment you put your phone back to your ear, it switches over to the earpiece. That I think is phenomenal. I can't live without that app anymore.
Okay, but how does that work? Is there a sense?
So every phone has a proximity sensor, the one that turns your display off when you put it to your ear. So it basically uses that to just keep toggling between the speakerphone. Okay, so that's brilliant.
Anything else?
I also like Flipboard for reading, a great way to read all the news from all great sources at one place. And Phoenix, the Twitter app. I guess these are the 3 apps that I use heavily.
Great. Guys, thank you very much. We've had a great show and we've got some very interesting insights on Android, the phones to buy and the apps to use. We're going to be back next week, same time. Thanks for watching the India Hangout.